The river swells beneath a canopy of towering ceiba trees, their roots tangled like the stories of a people whose language has long since faded. In the early morning mist, a colossal head of basalt emerges from the water, its eyes gazing eternally toward the horizon, as if questioning the very notion of disappearance. How could a civilization that vanished millennia ago have forged such monumental art, engineered trade networks across dense jungles, and inspired the myths of later cultures? The answer lies hidden in the earth, in the silent stones, and in the faint echoes of glyphs still waiting to be read. Their basalt came from the Tuxtla Mountains. Some of it moved more than 60 kilometers without draft animals or the wheel, a logistical feat archaeologists are still working to reconstruct. In the lowlands of what is now southern Veracruz and Tabasco, around the second millennium before the Common Era, a society rose that would become the wellspring of Mesoamerican civilization. Scholars refer to this culture as the Olmec, a term meaning rubber people, derived from the Nahuatl word Olmeca used by later peoples to describe their ancestors. The Olmec flourished between roughly 1500 and 400 BCE, constructing grand ceremonial centers such as San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapotes. Their world resonated with the scent of fresh latex harvested from wild hevea vines, the crackle of firelight in communal hearths, and the low, rhythmic beating of wooden drums that marked the passage of the ritual calendar. The air was heavy with the aroma of roasted maize, while the distant calls of howler monkeys provided a natural soundtrack to daily life. Farmers tilled the fertile floodplains, their implements of stone and wood turning the soil that would nurture the staple crops of corn, beans, and squash. Maize here was on its way to becoming the staple of a hemisphere. The lime treatment that would later unlock its full nutrition, nixtamalization, spread through Mesoamerica in these same early centuries. Artisans shaped jade, obsidian, and basalt, their workshops echoing with the clang of chisels against stone, producing masks, figurines, and the enigmatic colossal heads that still dominate the landscape. Hierarchies were expressed through elaborate feasts, where elite families displayed their status by offering cacao beans and exotic birds, while scribes etched glyphs onto clay tablets, preserving the earliest written expressions of Mesoamerican thought. The jade reaching these workshops came from the Motagua Valley, in what is now Guatemala, more than 800 kilometers away, evidence of exchange networks far older than any Mesoamerican empire. The earliest surviving text from this region comes from the La Majara Stela, an AP Olmec monument dating to the early 1st millennium BCE. The inscription reads, Wanahau Tu Ku. This phrase, translated by scholars as "One Lord of Heaven," offers a rare glimpse into the language of a people otherwise silent. Later, at the base of a jaguar-shaped monolith at San Lorenzo, an additional glyph has been interpreted as the word jaguar, a term that appears repeatedly in the iconography and likely denotes a sacred or ruling figure. These brief but profound lines, etched into stone, remind the modern observer that the Olmec possessed a system of symbols capable of recording authority and cosmology. Walking through the ceremonial heart of San Lorenzo, the first impression is one of scale. Massive basalt heads, some weighing several tons, stand in a semicircle, each face carved with distinct features. Broad noses, thick lips, and fierce, forward-facing eyes. The stone feels cool and damp beneath the palm, the surface still exuding the faint mineral scent of rain-kissed rock. Around the heads, the plaza opens to a broad, sun-baked platform where the elite once performed rites. The platform's surface is covered with a thin layer of red ochre, its pigment still vivid after 2,000 years, suggesting blood offerings or the symbolic painting of the earth. The echo of footsteps reverberates against the stone, mingling with the distant call of a white-bellied spider monkey, creating a soundscape. San Lorenzo rose around 1200 BCE and dominated the region for some 4 centuries before its monuments were defaced and buried. Whether that was the work of invaders, of rivals, or of the Olmec themselves remains unresolved. Beyond the ceremonial core, a series of earthen mounds rises, their slopes clad in vegetation that sways gently in the tropical breeze. These mounds, built from compacted earth and topped with thatch, served as residences for the ruling class. Inside, the rooms are modest, their walls plastered with a mixture of clay and limestone, smoothed to a pale finish that reflects the filtered light of oil lamps. The scent of cooking fires mingles with the earthy aroma of plant fibers, while the occasional clink of jade beads being strung together can be imagined as artisans labor over delicate jewelry. The presence of a large cistern, carved directly into the limestone, indicates sophisticated water management, allowing the inhabitants to collect rainwater during the rainy season and sustain the settlement during drought. A short walk eastward brings the observer to the riverbank, where the ancient trade routes converged. The Olmec were adept merchants, moving goods such as jade, magnetite, and obsidian across vast distances. The river, now a slow, meandering channel, once teemed with canoes carved from hollowed logs, their paddlers navigating the swift currents with practiced ease. Among the goods were mirrors of polished magnetite, ground so precisely that they focus light to a point. Whether they served as ornament, as ritual instrument, or as a means of kindling fire is still argued. The air is thick with the smell of damp wood and the metallic tang of fresh obsidian, a stone prized for its sharpness and used to craft ritual knives and decorative masks. Small wooden platforms extend into the water, where merchants would unload bundles of rubber bark, a commodity that gave the Olmec their name, ready for transport to distant coastal settlements. The clatter of wooden crates against stone, the soft splash of water against hulls, and the occasional cry of a tropical bird all combine to recreate the bustling commercial atmosphere of a thriving early economy. Further inland, the dense canopy opens to reveal a terraced field, its earth dark and fertile from centuries of cultivation. Maize stalks rise in orderly rows, their leaves rustling softly in the wind. The scent of fresh corn mingles with the sweet perfume of wild orchids that cling to nearby trees. Terraced agriculture required careful engineering. Stone retaining walls prevent erosion, while channels direct rainwater to the fields. In the distance, the faint sound of a wooden flute drifts across the field, perhaps played by a young apprentice during a seasonal ceremony invoking the god of rain. The presence of small, intricately carved stone altars along the field edges suggests that agricultural work was intertwined with ritual, each harvest season marked by offerings of cacao beans and the occasional blood sacrifice. A short distance from the cultivated terraces lies the ball court of La Venta, a sunken rectangle framed by stone benches, its surface once a polished basalt that reflected the glare of the tropical sun. The ball court's walls are adorned with reliefs depicting jaguar masks and celestial symbols, hinting at the cosmological significance of the game. The echo of a rubber ball striking the stone floor would have reverberated through the arena, accompanied by the rhythmic chant of participants and the occasional roar of spectators. The smell of heated stone mingles with the scent of incense burned in small brazier pits, their smoke spiraling upward in thin, fragrant tendrils. The ball itself came from the Castilla elastica tree, its latex processed with morning glory sap into a durable, bouncing sphere. It is from this material that the Aztecs, much later, gave these people the name we still use, the rubber people. This arena served as both a sporting venue and a ritual space where political power could be demonstrated through the mastery of a game believed to echo the movements of the sun and the moon across the sky. Beyond the ball court, a cluster of smaller structures forms a residential quarter for artisans and laborers. Here, the sounds shift from the solemn tones of ritual to the lively clatter of daily life. Potters turn their wheels, shaping vessels from locally sourced clay, the rhythmic scraping of their tools forming a steady beat. Weavers sit on low stools, their hands deftly moving threads of cotton and agave fibers, the faint hum of their looms blending with the chirping of cicadas. The scent of fresh earth, combined with the occasional waft of cooking beans, creates a comforting atmosphere of community and continuity. These modest dwellings, built from wattle and daub, stand in contrast to the monumental architecture of the elite. Yet they embody the essential labor that sustained the civilization. The final scene of this imagined journey leads to the southern edge of the site, where a series of stones steely rise like sentinels against the sky. The tallest of these bears a glyph that scholars have decoded as a date, marking an event in the Olmec calendar. The inscription reads, "Jaguar." Today, the remnants of this culture are scattered across museums and research sites. The colossal heads of San Lorenzo sit in the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. Their massive forms displayed under controlled lighting that highlights the subtle variations in basalt grain. The legacy of the Olmec endures not merely in stone, but in the cultural DNA of later peoples.